New ring, honey, for you. I practiced saying those words in my head long before I ever held the ring in my hand. They sounded simple, almost casual, but nothing about them was simple, because this ring wasn't just metal. It wasn't just a promise. It was everything I was too afraid to say out loud. I didn't buy it because the moment was perfect. I bought it because my heart was tired of waiting for courage. I remember standing there, holding it between my fingers, realizing how small it was and how heavy it felt. Funny how love works like that. The smallest things carry the most weight. Honey, you don't know this, but by the time I bought the ring, I had already imagined 100 futures with you. None of them were perfect, but all of them had you, and that was enough. I didn't fall in love with you loudly. I didn't announce it to the world. I didn't even admit it to myself at first. I let it grow quietly, in the way your name settled into my thoughts, in how my days felt incomplete without hearing your voice, in how I caught myself smiling for no reason, and then realizing you were the reason. I told myself I was being careful, but the truth, I was scared. Scared of how deeply I felt, scared of how easily you mattered, scared of what it would mean if one day you decided I wasn't enough. So I loved you silently. I listened more than I spoke. I supported more than I asked. I gave more than I demanded. Because somewhere in my past, I learned that asking for love makes people leave. And I couldn't risk losing you. Honey, I watched you in moments you didn't notice. The way you talked about your dreams, unsure but hopeful. The way you laughed freely when you forgot the world was watching. The way you carried strength quietly without asking for recognition. I didn't fall for your beauty first. I fell for your truth. And truth is dangerous because once you see it, you can't pretend anymore. I started imagining you wearing the ring before I even knew if you'd say yes. I imagined your fingers, your smile, the pause before your answer. And every time my chest tightened because what if the ring meant more to me than it would to you? That question haunted me. I didn't want to pressure you. I didn't want to trap you in expectations. I didn't want love to feel like a responsibility. So I kept waiting, waiting for the right time, the right moment, the right version of myself. But the right moment never comes when fear is involved. Honey, this ring isn't about ownership. It's about choice. It's about me standing in front of you and saying, I choose you, not because I need you to complete me, but because life feels more honest with you in it. I didn't buy this ring to promise perfection. I bought it to promise presence, to promise that even on days when words fail, even when emotions get heavy, even when life becomes uncertain, I won't disappear. I'll stay. And that scares me more than anything I've ever done. Because staying means being seen. Staying means being vulnerable. Staying means risking heartbreak. But loving you without risking anything wouldn't be love at all. Honey, when I look at this ring, I don't see a future set in stone. I see possibility. I see growth. I see mistakes and forgiveness. I see laughter and silence. I see hard days and gentle mornings. I see two imperfect people choosing each other again and again. That's why my hands shook when I bought it, because I wasn't just buying a ring, I was admitting something to myself, that I'm ready to stop hiding my heart, that I'm ready to be honest, that I'm ready to say the words I've carried inside me for too long. New ring, honey, for you, not as a demand, not as a cage, not as pressure, but as a confession of love, of hope, of courage I'm still learning to have. And this is only the beginning. I didn't give you the ring that day, not because I didn't want to, but because I was afraid of what it would mean if I did. I stood there, holding it in my pocket, listening to you talk about the smallest things. You were telling me about your day, about how tired you were, about how people expect too much from you, and all I could think was, I'm about to ask you to carry my forever too. You laughed that laugh, the one that always disarms me, and suddenly my courage folded in on itself. So I smiled and I lied. I said nothing. That night, when you left, I sat alone and finally took the ring out. I placed it on the table like it could judge me, like it knew I had failed it, failed us. You think love is loud, grand gestures, public promises, words spoken at the perfect moment, but my love for you has always been quiet, heavy, the kind that sinks into your bones and never leaves. I've loved you in the moments you never noticed, when you weren't looking your best, when you were angry, when you were distant, when you were silent, especially when you were silent. There are things I've never told you, like how I rehearse conversations with you in my head before we even talk, like how I memorize your moods so I don't say the wrong thing, like how I pretend I'm strong when all I really want is for you to choose me without hesitation. You once asked me why I don't talk about my fears. The truth? Because all my fears have your name in them. I'm scared of losing you, scared of not being enough, scared that one day someone else will understand you in a way I never could. And yes, I'm scared that you'll love me, but not forever. That ring wasn't just a promise, it was a confession. It said, I'm not perfect, but I'm yours. It said, I'm choosing you, even on the days you don't choose yourself. It said, I'm terrified, and I'm still here. I didn't give it to you because I wanted the moment to be pure, not rushed, not pressured. I wanted you to feel it, not just hear it. But time is cruel. Days passed, weeks passed, and every day I didn't give you that ring, it felt heavier in my pocket. Sometimes you pull away a little, not enough for anyone else to notice. But I do. I always do. I feel it in the way you reply slower, in the way your eyes don't stay on mine as long. And I wonder if I waited too long, if love has an expiration date, if silence can undo devotion. I still have the ring. I still imagine the moment you looking at me confused, then emotional, then smiling in that soft way you only do when you're overwhelmed. I imagine your hands shaking, mine too, and I imagine saying the words I've been hiding. This isn't just a ring, this is me choosing you again and again, even when I'm scared. If I ever give it to you, know this, it wasn't hesitation, it was depth, it wasn't doubt, it was fear of losing something too precious. And if I never do, then this story, this confession, is my truth. Because whether I put that ring on your finger or keep it hidden forever, my heart already belongs to you. Time will write its marks on our faces, but my eyes will still search for you in every room, because true love does not age, it deepens. I did not choose you out of desire, I chose you out of recognition. Some souls do not meet by chance, they meet to stay. Only you, my beloved, not for a season, not for convenience, but for a lifetime. You will be my wife in love, in loyalty, in honor, and I became everyone's safe place while slowly losing my own. At night, when everything was quiet, my thoughts got loud. Regrets surfaced, old conversations replayed, questions with no answers refused to leave me alone. But in the morning, I put the mask back on because survival taught me one rule. If you want to be loved, don't be heavy. What I hid even from myself. There are thoughts I never shared with anyone, not because they were dangerous, but because they were honest. I often felt replaceable, like if I disappeared, people would adjust faster. Then they would miss me, like my presence mattered only as long as I was useful. I hated myself for thinking that way. So I buried those thoughts deep. I stayed busy, overworked, overavailable. I said yes when I wanted to say no. I showed up even when I was exhausted because if I stopped, I was afraid everything would catch up with me. And then, one night, it did. I was alone, scrolling through my phone, watching other people live lives that looked full relationships, celebrations, happiness captured in perfect frames. And for the first time, I admitted something terrifying. I didn't know who I was without the mask. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I felt beyond tired. That realization hurt more than loneliness, because loneliness implies absence of people. This was absence of self. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't broken. I was disconnected from myself, and that scared me. The quiet breakdown. My breakdown wasn't dramatic. No screaming, no collapsing, no visible crisis. It was quiet. I started waking up with a heaviness in my chest. Conversations felt exhausting. Even things I once enjoyed felt distant. One evening, someone asked me a simple question: "Are you really okay?" I opened my mouth to say yes, and nothing came out. That silence said more than any confession ever could. That night, I sat alone and let myself feel everything I had been avoiding: the disappointment, the unmet expectations, the grief for versions of myself that never got to exist. I cried, not because life was cruel, but because I had been cruel to myself. I had ignored my own needs for so long that I didn't recognize them anymore. That was the moment I realized strength without honesty is just self abandonment. I didn't need to disappear. I didn't need to change everything. I needed to stop lying, especially to myself, learning to exist. Honestly, healing didn't arrive all at once. It came in small, uncomfortable choices: saying I'm not okay without explaining, saying no without guilt, letting people misunderstand me instead of over explaining. Every pause, every emoji for meaning. And she she had become my obsession, my private escape from reality. Not because she was perfect, far from it, but because she was real. She didn't demand, she didn't expect, she just existed in my life in small, fleeting ways, and those were enough to haunt. The message remained unsent, but I wrote it over and over, each version more honest, more desperate, more raw than the last. I told her everything I didn't dare speak aloud: my fears, my regrets, my brokenness, the parts of me I hid behind smiles. I realized something painful. I was addicted to the idea of confession without consequence, because sending it would change everything. And maybe I wasn't ready to risk that change. So I kept it private. Just me, the message, and the quiet ache in my chest. The weight of words. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. Every time I thought of sending the message, my heart would race. Every time I held my phone, the words seemed to scream at me. Say it. Just say. But I didn't. Instead, I wrote in my notebook. I wrote on scraps of paper. I wrote in my journal. Each confession, each honest thought was a small act of courage. Not for her, not for anyone, but for me. I started noticing patterns. I had been living my life for everyone else, my family, my friends, my colleagues, always performing, always pretending. But with this message, I was performing for no one. I wrote, "Baby, I feel alive only when I imagine you reading this. I know it's selfish, but it's true." The weight of words grew heavier each day, not because of what they contained, but because of what they revealed. My vulnerability, my insecurities, my dependency on someone else for validation. And yet, despite the heaviness, I felt freer. I was confronting truths I had hidden for years. I was admitting my feelings to myself without judgment. One night, after a particularly exhausting day, I reread all my unsent messages. I realized something. I was in love with the version of her I created in my mind, not necessarily the real person. It was a painful truth, but liberating at the same time. I stopped trying to craft the perfect message. I stopped worrying about what she might think. I just wrote. And in that writing, in that confession, I found clarity. Confession isn't about being heard. It's about being honest with yourself first. Finally, sending it to myself. Months later, I did something unexpected. I didn't send a message to her. I sent it to myself. I copied all my unsent messages into a single document, a private confession, and read it aloud. Every word I had hidden, every fear I had buried, every longing I had ignored, all spoken into the emptiness of my own room. I cried, I laughed, I shook, I felt it was strange, this act of confession without audience. No one was judging me, no one was rejecting me, no one could misunderstand me. It was just me finally acknowledging my own heart. And in that moment,